Wages World here. It is the 13th of June, 2020, going into the 14th. And yeah, come at you with a video. Listen, guys, this is a pretty big spike here on the Schumann. That's something, like I said, guys, we're going to continue to see spikes, but this is most certainly one that we need to talk about. One thing I would say here, though, this is what I call an OG spike, and that means, you know, old school, or however you want to put that. It does not, I do not see like pulsing. I do a little bit here, like it might have been like the intensity of it was raising and lowering, but it never went completely away like these were back here. You can see how it goes all the way down. The white's totally missing in those. Now here you can see how it just continued right on through. That intensity went there, got there, and stayed there for that amount of time. Now we're going to look at that amount of time, and that's about 10 hours. That's a significant spike. Okay, so whatever this was, and looking at this, and I've looked at these things so much, I'm starting to notice certain things, and like I have in the past, but this is just a touch different. Okay, now if you look here, guys, we're seeing horizontal increase intensity. Okay, you're seeing pretty big little marks here, or horizontally, not vertically like we typically see. That's a little different. Now, granted, it is on the same line where you see the frequency being there anyway, but it does get very intense in those areas at certain times. Okay. Now, again, you got that, whatever's causing that, and then this is almost like two different spikes. Okay. This is something I've been noticing. You're seeing one here that kind of looked like it did its thing and it fell off and quit. Okay, I just think what this is this is two different spikes, probably from two different sources. Okay, and they just happen to overlap each other. That's pretty much what I'm seeing, because the shape of it kind of gives it away. We see both these shapes quite often, just not usually together like that. So in my opinion, that came from two different sources. Whatever caused that came from two different things. I don't think it was something natural. I guess it could have been. I mean, we can have earthquakes, or even thunder, like massive amounts of thunderstorms or bad weather over there where these detectors are over in Russia, which is where these are at. That can actually affect what these things pick up. But the amount that we pick up now is not. There's no way that's showing anything than what we see. They would have severe thunderstorms every day if that was the case, and that we all know that that's not happening. But as you can see here, guys, this does look like two different separate spikes. Now, again, I know that they run together, but I do think that, like at this point right here, I do think that they do. That is a separate spike from a different source. So. That's what I would say here. I'm not seeing much anything else to really talk about here other than what I've already spoke about there. Again, if you guys are feeling bad, you're feeling ringing in your ears at that time, this could be it. Again, sleeplessness, stuff like that. Now, if we start talking about serious medical problems, guys, I have to say this again. I get emails every day talking about this stuff. And I don't want you guys to not go to your doctor, okay? I know that a lot of times we can look at this or look at other things and say, hey, that's what it is. And a lot of the time it actually ends up being that. But when it comes to big stuff, if you're talking about your heart and everything else, go talk about it with a professional, okay? Please. Just please. This could have something to do with it, but it could also just be part of it. You could have another serious issue. And that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to forget that this isn't all we need to look at. We have to look at everything. So, that's what I would say. Okay, guys, here's that CME from yesterday. We're going to look at the start of it. Like I already showed you guys this yesterday in my video. And, you know, again, that's blowing off to the left. And it did look like it was going directly off the back. Well, the CME tracker that I show you guys has updated for this CME. And it's actually going off the side, just straight to the left, kind of what it looks like from here. Okay? This is our perspective. This is as if we walked outside and looked up at the sun. Okay? That's the viewpoint we have here. The satellite sits right out in front of the Earth. This is on SOHO. And this is the LASCO C2 camera on the SOHO satellite. All right? If anybody wants to know any of that. We're going to look at LASCO C3 too, because what it is C2 is more zoomed in. C3 is actually zoomed out. We get to see a broader view of what we're seeing here. Now, we won't get the black and white, but we will get a blue view that is very similar to the red here on the right. And we do see stuff on that. So we'll take a look at that here in a minute. But let's look at the most recent capture here today. Look at this. Okay. This is that same CME that continued for almost, well, it's still continuing. You can still see that it is, whatever action's happening over there is continuing. So it's still ejecting right now. Whatever's going on over there, if it's a sunspot that's getting ready to come look at us or not, we're just gonna have to wait and see. But the fact of the matter is that was a long-lasting CME. And yes, I would consider that the same CME. Even though you're seeing multiple little ejections in there, the event never stopped. Okay? It wasn't like we had a big massive explosion and went back to normal for an hour or two and then another massive explosion. That ain't what we're seeing. We've seen something start on the 12th. It continued all the way through the whole day on the 13th. And right as we're looking at this, it probably even goes into the 14th. So we're looking at a CME that lasted 24 hours at least. So that should put in perspective what we're seeing here. That's a lot of energy leaving the sun. So, obviously we're going to look at it. Okay, guys, so here it is on stereo A. And again, this is the side view of the sun. All right? The Earth is here. Here's the satellite over here. Okay? So that's the view we're looking at here on this particular capture. This is on the 12th. Okay? Now remember what I showed you guys yesterday with this flash that happened right in here. That was so odd, guys. I'm still kind of concerned about that, just to be honest. I don't really know what to make of that. If we just seen a flash and nothing else and nothing was happening on the sun, I would just leave it alone. I mean, I really wouldn't talk about it much because we see it quite often. But this right here, with all that happening right in the same direction too, and that something's blowing off the sun, it's kind of odd. It really is. It's kind of strange. Not to mention that it doesn't point directly at the sun. It actually points to the side. If you follow the lines through here where this thing, the flash happened, we did that yesterday on my video. So that was on the 12th. We'll go to the 13th, and this is where we see actually the size of this thing. Okay, yes, I know it doesn't look like impressively intense, but we're missing a lot of data here on this one. Okay, we're missing the first 6 hours of data on this day. And that was a lot of the time that the CME was happening. And typically I would say, hey, the tool's tripped out on this. It's not showing us the data. But this is one of those things where on Stereo A and on LASCO C2, a lot of the satellites, the first few hours of every day, you'll miss that data a lot of time. Because what they're doing is sometimes they will do their downloads or their uploads, and they're keeping their software on this particular camera up to date. And that does take some time, and yes, they do have to take it down for a minute. Sometimes I think it's kind of fishy when they do that around certain events, but and I talk about that. But in this case, I wonder, but I can't point directly to that. So I'm not going to claim that right now. But, you can see how big this thing actually was. I'm going to try to pause it when it comes back. Okay, let's try to pause it when it happens here. I'm going to back it up and we'll take a look at it a little bit better. Because you get to see a little bit of the shadowing. And it kind of outlines how big it actually was. Now, right there. Okay. Now, this is where people are going to be like, what are we looking at? Because if you look at this thing, and I know what everybody's thinking, and I can tell you right now, there's no way that this is what everybody's thinking. And we look at this thing, and it's that big. It's that round. It's round, guys. That's not... I mean, it's just funny how it did take that shape. Now, Scott did catch something in there, okay? And, you know, I'm going to give you the link to his video. I want you guys to go check it out because it's pretty impressive. And it's right there where it's supposed to be. And it's, you know, and we're going to, I'll just give you the link because I want you guys to go check him out over there because, you know, he puts that work in. You guys need to go check it out. He tells me I can share anything that he shares with me, but, you know, listen, guys. When somebody does the work for something like that, they do deserve the traffic. So that's why I'm going to do that. And I will show you know, I can show you a still of it, but, you know, I may show it tomorrow. That's kind of what I do. Sometimes I'll wait a day or two just so people can go over and check it out on his channel. He will be able to explain it better anyway because he's the one that caught it. He's the one that did the work on it. So that's what I would say to that. But as you can tell, that's a pretty decent sized CME. And we'll go look at it on the CME tracker, and I'll show you exactly where it's heading. Okay, guys, this is a CME tracker, and yes, it did update, okay? You can tell by the date. Look at the timestamp up here when it starts. Okay, it'll start on the 12th. Well, that one did the 13th. Okay, so that's when it updated the last time. Now, anything that happened before or after, it's not going to show you. It just didn't, you know, it's not going to happen. Now, this did show us what happened on the 12th. And it's not there anymore because it's different. This is a different CME. This is the second part of that first CME I was telling you. I should have took a video of this earlier and I didn't. So I apologize for that because what you're seeing right here is like that second little ejection that I was showing you guys on the 13th that I was calling part of the first initial CME, which it kind of is. All right. But this is the second one here. The first one actually ended up being larger, but it went the exact same direction. So it's not coming at us, but it did blow off the side. I will say that. Now, something to note here, if you guys are looking at where Earth is at here, okay, Earth's here. Now, right at the beginning, look at the spiral graph there. You see where it's green and yellow? That's showing you that there's something there. Something's going on. Now, look at the side view. You see that? See what happens as that energy keeps moving on out? You see the colors that it gets to? That gets pretty intense. All right, and then you can even see it more so on this one. That most definitely gets us. Okay, whatever that is, I think it's high dense, a high dense event here. I don't think it's high wind. It could be, I guess, from a coronal hole. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's from the section that we'd actually seen there that looked like we were getting a small ejection shot our way. Sometimes the real small CMEs, it won't pick up. It won't even show it. But it will show the energy like this. So we're going to go look at the other ones. Alright guys, this is Space Weather Prediction Center. And this is where we go to look at space weather conditions. That's basically what we're looking at, right? So we're looking at the solar X-ray flux, which is what we look at for solar flares. So if we're having flares, you know, it'll put it in classes like over here. See the flare class? And it looks as though we might have had a little spike here. I guess what day would that be on? Between about halfway through the day today. Okay, right around noon it looks like. We had an uptick there. Maybe there was a small flare from that sunspot that was Earth facing. Who knows? It was not that big of a deal. It looks like it might have made it into small B class, maybe a B1 or B2 flare. That's the energy that we're seeing there on the X-ray flux. Now the proton flux didn't move. Nothing happened there. Now look at this. Okay, this is where it becomes confusing for some people. So let me explain. This is low activity. Okay, this is geomagnetic activity. This is what we look at when we get CMEs and, you know, increased solar wind from like coronal holes. When we get a geomagnetic storm, they will you know, label it as such. A G1 is the lower one, right? All the way up to G5. You see a G5 storm, we're talking probably an X flare of some sort, a large CME, a very powerful one, that kind of thing. Now the KP index over here will follow that same trend upward, but it puts a different number on it. Puts 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Basically, a KP of 5 will give you a G level 1 storm. You guys see that? Okay. Just so everybody understands. I want everybody to understand what we're looking at. And so on and so forth as you go up. A KP of 9 would put you at a G5 level magnetic storm. Okay? Essentially, it's like a thunderstorm warning system as it goes up. Now, we don't want to ever get up into like that area, right? Into a 9 kp or a G5 storm, which is the same thing, essentially. Now, we get up towards a 6, we start getting pretty concerned. Now, we get into a 7, you're definitely going to hear every channel out there talk about that. Okay? Now, you talk about a G1 or a G2, sometimes channels won't even talk about that because a lot of times it doesn't really do a whole lot. Now, you won't hardly hear any channel other than myself and a few others that talk about this, the low end of this, okay? We don't want to be that low for that long of a time period because we have to have some geomagnetic activity and energy around that deflects. It helps us deflect some of the cosmic rays that get in, okay? So when it gets real low like that for an extended period of time, they put out cosmic ray alerts. And especially for people that fly. All right, people that are flying in high altitudes and high latitudes up towards the poles. Because on the poles, more activity gets in. More geomagnetic activity comes in easier on our poles. That's just the way that the global circuits it's how it's wired up. Okay, essentially. If you look at the maps and stuff, you can see where the weak spots are. And it's on the poles. So, anything like cosmic rays, you can equate cosmic rays directly to radiation. If you guys want to know what a cosmic ray is, essentially, it's radiation. All right? So, that's what we're talking about here. So, people that are prenatal passengers that are flying a lot up high, they have to pay attention to this stuff. Okay? Cabin crews, pilots, all that. They have to pay attention, especially if they're flying like, I think they said, 800 hours a year. If they're exposed to this stuff over and over and over again, they can get sick. Okay, that's why. It's just like you if you went into the doctor's office and every time you went in there they took an X-ray. You don't want them to do that. They don't even like to do X-rays on pregnant women because it can harm the baby. And a lot of people don't understand that or know that. But that is what they do. They do not like to do X-rays unless they have to on pregnant women because of the baby. So, because it can affect you. The X-ray is essentially radiation, guys. Okay? Now, what we're looking at here, you look at the sun, you see the coronal holes. That in 3 to 4 days where those coronal, because the Earth, here's the equator of the sun, the Earth kind of sits here. So that's all rotating right in front of us, called the Earth strike zone. And we're going to be starting seeing wind from that, solar wind, here in about 3 to 5 days. Just depending on how fast it's moving. Now, something of note on this particular chart here. You see the density? Now, I always tell you guys to look at the range. That's 1 to 1,000. Now, we do see that from time to time. But when we do see that, that means that either they're expecting a very, very high dense reading or they've already gotten one. Because usually this thing is 1 to 10 at the most. This 100 and 1,000 usually isn't even there. Sometimes the 10 isn't even there. Sometimes it's 0.1 to 1. The whole range. Okay, so when we see one that's going to read 1,000 or possibly could, we stop and we look because it could be something we need to be paying attention to. Like I said before, guys, when the solar wind travels, you got the sun, the earth, the IMF line that connects us, right? And the charged particles, which is the solar wind, travels on that line. The higher dense ones stay close to the middle. So it packs a higher punch when it gets here. The low dense ones are like this. So they're so broad that it doesn't hit us as hard. That's what we're trying to say. Now you can see where the solar wind itself dove off here at the end. Okay, it took a dive. Now, it was already hanging low anyway. That's low normal is what I would call that, right around 350. The temperature, same thing. Nothing's really crazy odd here, which is why it's so odd for me to look at this thing, and it says 1 to 1,000. So I don't know if they're expecting something or what. So we go over here and we look at this, and this kind of explains it, just to be honest. So you're looking at this, and just like over on the CME tracker, look what we're seeing. I'm going to push play on this one. I don't usually show you guys the actual spiral graphs here in motion, but you can see where, watch right here, the side view. Watch what happens as this thing gets around the 17th. Okay, you see what's going on there? That's a high dense material that's coming to us right then and there. Plus, that looks like they're expecting the solar wind to increase then too. So what that's telling us is it's most likely either from a coronal hole, or it could have been a CME or a solar flare fired at us. Not really a solar flare, but like a solar storm, I guess you could say. My guess is it was that little CME that we seen that was coming at us yesterday, opposite of the big one that went off the side, right? So it looks like around the 17th, which is roughly 3 to 5 days, just like I said about the coronal hole. So it could be that, it could be whatever, right? So both of those graphs are showing us that, hey, something's expected around the 17th. So we're going to keep an eye on that, okay? Just kind of stay tuned, and we'll talk about it as it gets closer. Not really a whole lot to talk about as far as auroras go right this moment. If we get that big high dense and solar wind increase, we'll definitely be talking about some auroras. Okay, guys. I'm going to leave you with this right here. This is SDO, and it's the most recent captures here on that. This is off to the right here, kind of coming at us a little bit. This is the one I showed you guys that looked like a C shape. And, yeah. That did happen, and that might be what's going to be coming our direction here. Or, like I said, guys, it could be the coronal holes that were happening at the same time. So whatever that is, whatever happens here, we'll keep an eye on it, guys. I don't see a whole lot else. Something else I want to mention, guys. I've been talking about this and showing you guys this for a while. Comet Atlas is diving past the sun right now. It's not diving into it. Okay, there was a lot of speculation on whether or not that was going to happen, whether it was going to dive into the sun or if it was going to make it past it. And I was showing you guys here for the past week that it already made it past it. It did not look like it was diving into the sun. And it isn't. It's diving past it. So it may hang out. It may survive for a while. It may make it back around in whatever many thousands of years it is from now. We'll not be here to see it, but, that could happen. We'll see. Somebody will see. But it is not diving into the sun. It looks like it's going to survive. Now, whether it survives its trip back, who knows? Or even its trip back out. If the solar wind's still affecting it, even though it might be coming from behind it. But anyway, guys, I'll come back with you tomorrow probably with another video. I'm just trying to hang out. I'm not really feeling all that well today. Again, guys, I'm dealing with some tragedy and stuff going on in my life and all that. Not really directly with me today, but with some of the people that I care about. So that does affect me in kind of a sideways manner, if you know what I'm saying. It does kind of got me messed up a little bit mentally. Just my focus isn't as precise as it usually is. So anyway, guys, God bless. Yeshua saves, and you can drink this Kool-Aid.